welcome to another episode of Gossip Finance, where I am your host, Alacius Inger.
And I'm Duncan Sandlin. How's everybody doing today? How are you, Lacey?
I'm excellent. Good. Man, there's some interesting stuff going on in the news. I can't wait to talk about it.
Yeah, we got some more finance stuff. We'll skim through Trump. I'm not ultra excited about those. But let's start out with the auto workers union strike, right? So that... So as we're filming, they might go on strike starting tonight if they don't cut a deal. But we'll look at the little news report real quick, and then we'll look at a little analysis of what's going on there. Come on, baby. There we go.
Phil LeBeau live in Detroit for an update on the ongoing UAW battle. Hi, Phil.
Scott, we have received some information from a source familiar with the UAW's plans for the plants that it will plan on striking come midnight tonight if they do not reach an agreement with Ford, GM, and Stellantis. And this is our understanding of the plants that will be announced tonight. 10 o'clock is when we will get the official announcement from the UAW. Let's start first off with General Motors, Romulus Powertrain, Toledo, Ohio Propulsion, and the Marion Metal Plant in Indiana. For Ford, it's our understanding that the UAW plans to strike at the Livonia Transmission Plant, Lima, Ohio Engine Plant, and the Cleveland Engine Plant. And finally, for Stellantis, we understand that the UAW will walk out at the Kokomo Transmission Plant in Kokomo, Indiana, and the Dundee Engine Plant. We should stress, we have reached out to the UAW for confirmation that this is, in fact, is the plan. We have not heard
see,
back.
Look at the prices. Man.
Yeah, I was really eager to see what the prices on those stocks were doing. Hence, I was glancing down. I was like, oh, well, what's that stock doing right now? Because
it's not doing. I mean, you're talking about Ford is only at $12.48.
Yeah, I was gonna say that Ford price. I mean, I kind of wish it was a little bit lower, to be honest with you.
Yeah. It's still pretty low. I mean. GM is at 33.33, but they're all down like almost a whole percent. What is that? 10 basis points, right?
Right.
But yeah, so I think the interesting thing about this whole thing is, one, good for the union. I mean, these people are underpaid, so they're asking for more money. They were asking for a little bit better working conditions, working hours, just basic stuff. I mean, nothing real ridiculous here. The other thing about it is those are major plants, and I think he actually gets into it here real quick because he'll talk about what kind of plants these are, because this is important for investors to understand, and just GM, I'm sure, knows it.
The UAW, but our source says this is the game plan for the UAW in terms of the targeted strikes. One last thing, Scott. If you look at all of these plants, the engine and the transmission plants, what do they provide transmissions to? The most profitable vehicles. The pickup trucks, full-size pickup trucks, as well as SUVs, the most profitable internal combustion engine products that are made by GM, Ford, and Stellantis. And again, we'll find out if this is actually the plants that the UAW walks out of tonight, if, in fact, we hear a strike is announced. Guys, I'll send it back.
So I think that's really great for UAW, because what that tells you right there is we know where your money comes from as your workers, and we're going to make it hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Until you give us what we want, we're gonna bring the pain. And this is just the most profitable engine plants. This is like the tip of the iceberg of what we could do. Because you're talking about, 8 plants out of hundreds?
Right.
This is just the rattling of the saber, the twisting of the knife sort of bit. I mean, this isn't even they're saying we can really make this hurt if you guys don't come to the table. So I thought that was really strategic of them. I don't know if you have any comments on that, but I have Sean Fain here from the head of the union workers. He's the president, the United Auto Workers. And this I stole from the majority report, but this is where this always comes back to, is they got to ask, well, you're striking for more rights or for better working conditions. Won't that hurt the economy? Aren't you thinking about the economy as a whole? And that's where this question comes in from. I think this is Jake Tapper. Yep. Tap shoes.
So analysts say a prolonged strike will push up auto prices and dramatically hurt the economy. Are you worried about either of those possibilities?
It's amazing to me how analysts, when workers ask for their fair share, it's always the end of the world. And, no one, the last 4 years in general, in the last decade, these companies made $250 billion in profit. In the last 6 months alone, they made $21 billion in profit. In the last 4 years, the price of cars went up 30%. CEO pay went up 40%. No one said a word. No one had any complaints about that. But now, God forbid that workers actually ask for their fair share of equity in the fruits of the labor and the product they produce. And all of a sudden, it's the end of the world. So, if the talking heads, the pundits, the companies want to say that, if we strike, it can wreck the economy. It's not that we're going to wreck the economy. We're going to wreck their economy, the economy that only works for the billionaire class. It doesn't work for the working class.
I don't know how he could have answered that more perfectly. That was the perfect answer. Yeah, car prices have gone up 30% in the last 4 years. Executive wages have gone up over 40%. I don't see you dragging the CEO of GM on going, hey, aren't you gouging the economy? Aren't you gouging the American people? You're inflating the prices.
Right? At the same time, these workers have some things that they want, and God forbid,
Well, what's really ironic to me is the argument Tapper made there, and that's why he kind of backed off, because it's a stupid argument, is, all right, so if you guys strike and get what you want, it's going to drive up auto prices because they're going to have to give you what you want and pay you more, right?
Right.
Well, the prices have already been inflated 30% and you're not paying us more. So clearly we're not the cause of the inflation. What's the cause of the inflation in this case? Well, the fact that they could get away with it. We know that. All the companies inflated their prices. They didn't pay their workers anymore any better. And now their workers are going,
of course not.
Right, now their workers are saying, we want a cut of the pie. Now, I know historically you could say that, yeah, paying more it drives up inflation, and it was a big factor. But the bottom line is it's never driven it up to like this level. What usually drives it up to this kind of level of inflation is because there's either a huge shortage, or because in this case, the companies realize we can get away with charging a lot more for the same product, and people will still buy it. Which also brings like interesting news that they're revising the PPI in the consumer report. So it seems like Americans are still spending. The retail sales actually went up higher than expected in July. So it's like, obviously, people are still spending despite all this. But it's like, God, it's just such a weaselly thing. When some guy making $20 million a year now makes $40 million, right? It's fine. But a guy asks for, hey, could I just, get a 40-hour work week and maybe a 10% raise? Nope.
Right.
Oh, man. So anyway, good for them. It's nice to see unions are doing stuff. I mean, it's been a long time, and workers have taken. Right. Yeah, workers. And every time we have these like recessions or economic problems, who takes the brunt? It starts with the poor and it works up to the middle class. But the rich.
Well, in many situations, it's the workers, the people that are making all of the money or doing all of the labor for whatever business or corporation it is. Those are the ones that are, having to take it all.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we're going to move on here to the Trump case. This is interesting. So, I mean, he's going to court March next year for the federal case for the January 6th incitement. The judge finally, after dragging her feet, is moving forward on the case with the stolen documents, right? The top secret documents he took. And now the Georgia case for interfering with the Georgia election, they allowed 2 of the 19 defendants to sever. And then Fox News is going to talk about this. And I'm getting a sense that they're really happy about this. And I don't know why. I mean, it is what it is, but we'll watch them go over this real quick.
Steve Harrigan, you are there in Atlanta. Maybe you can help set us up for this. We're getting some decisions in Fulton County.
That's right. One key decision, keep in mind, the prosecutor here wanted to try all 19 of these defendants in one group, one huge trial. That's not going to happen right now. That's because the judge has allowed 2 of the defendants to sever themselves from the case. Kenneth Chesbrough and Sidney Powell have been allowed to sever themselves. That means they will be tried separately. So their trial, they've asked for a...
So that's the 19 defendants. So anyway.
Oh my goodness.
So Sidney Powell, who was the crazy lawyer who said that the machines were developed by Cesar Chavez or somebody, I can't remember who it was. It was somebody who's been dead for like over a decade, plotted the election scheme. and from, wherever, Cuba. And she was going to release the Kraken, that lady. I don't know if you remember all that. And then the other guy was, it's Chesbrough, but everybody calls him Cheese Bro. How
can you not call him Cheese Bro? I see that name and yeah, that's happening.
Cheesy Bro. So Cheesy Bro, not related to the cheese burglar, by the way. Let's not smear the cheese burglar name.
I don't know. I was thinking of an episode of Golden Girls where they talk about the cheese man.
Yeah, there you go. Anyway, so they severed. So those 2 filed what's called a motion to sever, which basically means we want separate trials, right? Which is a pain for the DA because now everybody's going to file one, and it'll probably end up being like 3 trials that she'll have to do the same basic trial 3 times in front of 3 different juries and 3 different judges, which will be interesting. But essentially what they did was they did the motion to sever and do a speedy trial because they wanted to get the trials done quicker. This is interesting because both of them are lawyers. It's kind of a gamble because what they're gambling is if we push the trial up, right, hopefully the DA won't be ready in time to take us to trial. The problem that they forgot is she's been prepping this for over a year and a half. And the reason she waited so long to indict is because she wanted to be ready to go to trial when she indicted. So she was all for it. She was like, yeah, you guys want to do October? Let's do October. So there is a potential slight advantage for Trump and the others, in which case they get to sort of see the trial beforehand, right? And some of the evidence. Of course, she's not going to release anything at the first trial that doesn't directly relate to the other co-defendants. She's going to try and keep it as tight as possible, right? She doesn't want to give away impeachable evidence or evidence where she can catch you in a lie, right? So they'll get to see it beforehand, but it could go one of 2 ways, right? Chesbrough and Powell don't get convicted or it's a hung jury, in which case it's going to make the next couple trials more difficult, just in general, right? Or they both get convicted and sentenced before the trials, and now it's a slam dunk for her because she can then go and say, well, yeah, but your other 2 have already been convicted of this crime, so now all I have to do is connect them to you directly. So this could go both ways. It is, you can call it a win for Chesbrough and Powell, but we'll see. We'll see. I don't know if you...
It feels a bit like a mixed bag, doesn't it? Doesn't it feel kind of like a mixed bag?
Yeah.
Whether that's is that a victory for them or not?
Yeah, I don't know. I just... It's gonna be interesting to see. Really, it comes down to what's the DA's case. The other thing is she had to give up who the unindicted co-defendants were, but that's just basic disclosure stuff. I don't think that's a real big issue. I don't think she cares. But yeah, it'll be fun to see because that's just one of 4 indictments that he's got going on. Trump's got going on right now. That one will be the fun one though, because since it's in Georgia, there's no rule against televising it live. So we'll all get to watch live Cheesebro and Powell's trial because they're being tried together now. And if there's a lot of damning evidence that comes out, it's going to be all over the news. It's going to be tough working at Fox News because you're going to be spending a lot of time trying to tap dance your way around. I didn't hear anything about that, even though I'm a news reporter.
Well, and with the way those ones are going to be all over the place, that's not going to really bode well for Trump during election season, even if his isn't, up quite yet, because all this information that's related to his is going to be constantly being spewed out there, so this is going to throw him kind of a blow any way you slice it.
Yeah, well, I mean, and you got to remember, he's still, we're the only country in the world that allows this. He's never won the popular vote. He lost the popular vote in both elections. But part of what saved him is he could get some of those uninformed voters, right, that don't really follow politics or the news. And those people, won't be able to avoid this. And they'll be sitting there going, wait, Trump did what? Well, I'm not voting for him now.
Right.
But Trump's got a counter. So he's put his pressure on his little lackeys in Congress, right? The Marjorie Taylor Greens and all those people. And they put their pressure on Kevin McCarthy, who's the Speaker of the House, one of the dumbest speakers in a century. And Kevin McCarthy's got a problem. She's got 2 problems. One, the debt ceiling's coming up again. And the last time they did this, they dragged it out. They were hoping it would backfire on Biden. It didn't. It backfired on them. And so they want to do it again, and he knows it's just going to kill the Republicans for the 2024 cycle if they try to basically tank the economy again. Because everybody at this point knows it's the Republicans doing it, right? So in order to try and get the votes to avoid that, he's going to impeach Joe Biden. And this is his announcement on impeaching Joe Biden. What's it for?
Okay, wait.
Go ahead.
Does he? Maybe I'm speaking too soon, but does he know what that means?
I'm pretty sure he knows what it means, but but the question is, what are they impeaching him for? That's the big question. Because they have to have committed a crime to impeach somebody.
Right.
Welcome back, everyone.
We'll play this faster.
In the months that we were gone, in the weeks, House Republicans have uncovered serious and credible allegations into President Biden's conduct.
Which are?
Taken together, these allegations paint a picture of a culture of corruption.
Which is?
Now, here's what we know so far. Through our investigations, we have found that President Biden did lie to the American people about his own knowledge of his family's foreign business dealings. Eyewitnesses have testified that the president joined on multiple phone calls and had multiple interactions. Dinners resulted in cars and millions of dollars into his son's business partners.
None of that's true, by the way. I'm just saying.
The bank records show that nearly $20 million in payments were directed to the Biden family members and associates through various shell companies. The Treasury Department alone has more than 150 transactions involving the Biden family and other business associates that were flagged as suspicious activity by U.S. banks.
Mm-hmm.
Even a trusted FBI informant has alleged a bribe to the Biden family.
That informant is now missing.
And let's also add, there are reports that are required to be filed by financial institutions when transactions over certain dollar amounts happen, and they're just absolute requirements.
Well, but here's what ended up happening. So the whole thing's Hunter Biden's laptop thing, right? That ended up blowing up, not being a thing. So then they moved into, well, Hunter Biden worked for Burisma, right? Which was an oil company in Ukraine. And that they were tied to corruption. Now we know Hunter Biden was basically making his living off his father's name, right? But we don't know that Joe Biden was involved in any of that. And in fact, all the evidence shows that Joe Biden didn't know anything about that. And so Hunter Biden would like call his dad and say hi when he had business people in the room just to show them, look, I still have a relationship with my father. Right? But a lot of this was going on while his older brother, Biden's oldest son, Beau, was dying. So your other son calls you, yeah, you're going to pick up the phone. You're not going to be like, oh, I'll call him back later. Especially when your other son is a recovering drug addict at the time. No, you're definitely going to pick up the phone. Hey, how's it going? Everything okay? Right?
Well, I mean, especially when there's a lot of stuff going on, one would think you would want to make sure that the one in recovery is not like on some downhill being super triggered slide, like you're going to pick up the phone.
Right. So the Burisma thing, they were like, okay, well, Biden was involved in that and getting his son that job or whatever. And there was some involvement with I guess this was the CEO of Burisma. It was a guy who was investigating Burisma for the Ukrainian government. Joe Biden was a part of getting that guy fired. And the reason Biden pushed to get him fired was he was basically ordered by Obama to do it, right? And the reason he did it is because the guy wasn't investigating Burisma. So when Joe Biden got the guy fired, it was actually bad for Hunter Biden and the company. So he didn't help his son out. He hurt his son in that whole deal. But he had to do it because he was the vice president. Right? So he couldn't have profited from that. And his son couldn't have profited. In fact, it cost his son money. Right? So now, okay, so there's no corruption there. So then they said, well, they're doing all these business deals. Well, once again, the witness they had was the former partner of Hunter Biden, who's now in jail, in prison. And I'm not saying Hunter Biden isn't a screw-up and doesn't have a lot of problems, but the bottom line is, even he said, well, yeah, Hunter would call his dad, but he never talked business with his father on the phone that I ever heard. And of course, the Republicans heard this witness in private with the Democrats in the hearing. They didn't want to publish this because they knew the witness didn't have anything. And basically his testimony was no. He would talk to his dad about the weather, or talk to his dad about golf or whatever's going on. Normal father-son shit. So that's
right.
all dead. So they have no evidence. They have no crime. They're just impeaching him. And what they're doing is they're saying, well, if I try to hold a vote to impeach him, Kevin McCarthy already knows he's going to lose the vote. So he's going to just sort of unilaterally impeach. And all that allows them to do is do investigations, which they've been doing for over 2 years and still come up with nothing. So the whole thing's dead in the water. And even now, the Republicans are saying, well, half of them are not half, but a good chunk of them are like, well, this is stupid. It's going to cost us the election because we're just going to look like assholes who are vindictive going after him. Right? And all we've done is give Trump something to say, well, look, see, Biden's been impeached too, when he really hasn't. So here I've got a clip from the David Pakman show where he's covering this. This is a Republican, and she's having a rough time explaining this.
Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace was humiliated last night on CNN, admitting she doesn't actually have any evidence against Joe Biden, despite the fact that she supports and Republicans will be moving forward with an impeachment inquiry against President Joe Biden. Here is Nancy Mace last night being interviewed by CNN's Caitlin Collins. The questions are very simple. Have you seen any direct evidence related to President Biden in any of this? Well, here's what Nancy Mace had to say.
To support it. I'm just saying, if you could see what I have seen, and I believe you deserve to see
But have
that.
you seen direct evidence
I
related
have
to President Biden? Because that's what we have not heard.
Well, we have to connect the dots, and that has to be through the bank records. If his bank records show nothing, the American people should know that too.
And you think it's worth launching that
100%.
to get to that?
I do.
Yeah. Have you seen evidence? Well, everybody has a right to know about it. And if we get those bank records, that's where...
So that's it. Have you seen evidence? Well, no, but I'm hoping we'll find some.
I haven't seen any evidence, but I don't know. Maybe there's a thing somewhere,
Right?
About something.
Right. I think he should be in prison. Okay, but on what charge? I don't know. We need to investigate to find out. We've done this bit so many times. This is the backwards way of doing it. You follow the evidence to the conclusion. You don't make a conclusion and then try to make the evidence fit it. Right?
And yet they keep doing exactly that.
And we always do the butler bit. Like Lacey and I are detectives. We walk in and there's a dead body and I go, the butler did it. And Lacey goes, well, you don't even know that it's a murder. We just know it's a dead guy. Right? I'm like, yeah, but I'm positive the butler did it. Lacey's like, it's a studio apartment. The guy doesn't have a butler. Right?
We're not even sure that a thing got done.
Well, but he has a tea set and butlers serve tea. So it must have been the butler. And you're like, no, he's 96 and he has a heart condition. He probably just died of a heart attack. See, the butler wanted you to think that, Lacey. It's like...
are you kidding me right now?
All the evidence points to the guy had a heart attack. Just go with the evidence. All right. Well, she's not the only Republican. I got one more. So David Pakman did a whole bunch of these. So I'm just going to play two of them. But yeah, these were hilarious. If you guys have never seen the David Pakman show, it's pretty good.
Does any Republican have the, I don't know what you want to call it. It's not really audacity. Is it the honesty to just say, hey, we don't have any evidence against Joe Biden. I don't know why we're opening up an impeachment inquiry. Well, there's at least one. Republican Ken Buck. He's been saying this for a while. He appeared last night with CNN's Anderson Cooper, and he says, I still have seen no evidence linking Joe Biden, certainly not to Hunter Biden's business activities.
2 days ago, you said that the time for impeachment is when there's evidence linking President Biden to a high crime or misdemeanor. Right. You said, quote, that doesn't exist right now. Do you still feel that way tonight?
I have not seen any evidence that links President Biden to Hunter Biden's activities at this point. I will be getting a briefing later in the week. I'm looking forward to understanding more of what the Oversight Committee has uncovered. But at this point, I have not seen that evidence.
Now, Ken Buck is rare in that he
is incredibly rare, but there's nothing.
But what it shows is that, pausing.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about that guy's politics, but what it shows is he has some level of integrity, that he's not willing to go out there and say, yeah, he's clearly guilty of XYZ when he's like, nah, I haven't seen anything.
Yeah.
So.
And I don't know where Kevin Buck is from, but I mean, if he's from New York, he's got to sit there and go, well, as a Republican from New York, I still got to play to the middle. Right? So I can't sit here and just go off half-cocked and start impeaching people. Right? And then come back home and look like a jackass. What did you do in Congress? I impeached the president. What for? I don't know yet. I'll figure it out eventually. I'll figure it out eventually.
Well, I mean, some people are just so hateful that they're going to want to see that happen, even if there's no evidence. But there's really going to be quite a few people that are like, why are we spending our valuable resources on a witch hunt for no reason? Like, spend them if there's a very reasonable suspicion of something, because there's been little evidence here and there that's pointing to something, but
right.
But totally random witch hunt is not where voters are going to want to see all of this money spent.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and the thing about it, I'm sure Biden's irritated because they're going to have to answer questions and give up documents and stuff. But the bottom line is, it's at the same time, it's like, yeah, but what? There's nothing there. You know, I mean, Biden is not the rich oligarch that people think he is. I mean, he's rich, but he's not that rich. He doesn't have a golden
Not compared
toilet.
to a lot of these other guys.
Yeah, doesn't have a golden toilet like Trump does. But yeah, I mean, it's basically just so Trump can go into the election next year saying, look, see, Biden's impeached too. So everybody's corrupt. It's the old Russian thing that Putin does all the time. It's the whataboutism, right? They're corrupt, I'm corrupt. There's no point trying for a better world. Right?
Right.
I also think that's the working title of every Tchaikovsky song ever written. You suck, I suck, we all suck. Let's just give up. I think that's every Russian novel ever written.
Right. And most of the plays, too.
That's right. Kids, if you have to read Anna Karenina for class, that's basically the whole plot right there.
Yep.
But anyway, here's the thing, is Republicans don't really have anything, and it's all just this theatrical, we're going to go after the trans people because, I don't know, they're kidnapping children. I don't know what their spiel is. But let's talk about something real. Child poverty has skyrocketed recently. And we know why. And here we are with the MSNBC with the 11th hour, and they're going to tell us why. But this is something we should be focused on.
I've been here when tax cuts for the wealthiest Americans were expiring, and I've seen the Senate stay here till 2 o'clock in the morning to make sure those tax cuts were extended. In this case, we turned our back on America's children.
Yesterday was one of the saddest and frustrating days in my time in the Congress. To learn that the United States had the largest increase in child poverty.
This moral obscenity of the richest nation in the world having the highest poverty rates is not an accident. It's not destiny. It's not inevitability. It is people in this institution making a policy choice.
Extend those tax credits.
So I want to point this out. 12.4% for a child poverty rate. That's more than 1 in 10 kids. It's like 1 in 8 kids. That's pretty sad. You know, you walk down the street, you see 8 children, there's a good chance one of them lives in poverty or is food insecurity. Now, why did it shoot up so much? Because it was at record lows coming out of the pandemic. Well, they're going to tell you right here.
It's for corporations and let them run out for kids. Following the expansion of the child tax credit back in 2021, we saw child poverty in this country fall to its lowest point ever. But that program was allowed to expire, and millions of families lost a financial lifeline just as inflation was surging. And what happened? The child poverty rate more than doubled to 12.4%. Joining me now, Democratic Senator Michael Bennet of Colorado. Senator, you knew I was going to invite you.
So we'll get to Michael Bennet here in a second, but that is a tax credit that we let lapse. Now, why did it lapse? Because Biden had to get a deal done on the infrastructure, and Joe Manchin, Democrat from West Virginia, wanted to cut the child tax credit to end poverty for children. And every Republican went with Joe Manchin. So the Republicans, all for starving children.
Well, let's also bring up the cuts to the SNAP program.
Absolutely.
I mean, what was it? Something like 32 states were positioning at the beginning of this calendar year to make cuts to the food stamp programs. You know, for already struggling families, that's a really big problem.
Yeah, STAP and TANF and WIC. which were all huge programs. Right. But I mean, it's and I'll tell this again later in this episode, but it's the old joke I remember. I watched Chris Rock years ago, and it was during the Iraq War. We had just captured Saddam, and Saddam Hussein was the dictator for Iraq. Our military found him hiding in a hole, literally hiding in a hole in a village. We gave him to the Iraqi people, and they, within like a week, had him tried and hung, right? And tore down all his statues and stuff. So Chris Rock is talking about this. Yeah, we invaded Iraq, and within a couple weeks, we found Saddam Hussein in the middle of nowhere, Iraq, hiding in a hole, right? And we invaded a country to do it. Yet, Tupac Shakur, who's the famous rapper, was murdered on the Las Vegas Strip in front of thousands and thousands of witnesses, surrounded by tens of thousands of video cameras, and we still don't have a suspect. And that's true to this day. And it's one of those things where it's like, but it shows you right there. It comes down to where do you want to expend your resources? Because that's the point Chris Rock was making back then. And right now, the Republicans are all about expending resources to impeach Biden, to try and win a re-election, to try and cover for Trump. But nobody's willing to expend the resources on the Republican side to help starving children. I mean, it really shows you the priorities here of the different parties. Like they were saying before, I've seen we'll stay here in the Senate chamber or the House chamber until 2 a.m. to make sure that rich people get tax credits or tax cuts. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to starving children, screw them. You know why? Because they don't have a lobby. Go ahead.
But Duncan, they have to make absolutely certain that every woman that gets pregnant is required to have a child. Children.
Yeah.
Then they don't actually care about feeding them once they're here. Once they're here, it doesn't seem that they care at all about putting the resources into making sure that they can lead good, healthy lives.
Right. Or they're educated. Or fed. All right. Let's listen to Bennett here. Talk about this, because this is just amazing to me.
We wanted to talk about this. How did we get here?
Well, Stephanie, we got here because we turned our back on America's kids. We enacted a policy that cut childhood poverty in half, which is what the proponents of this bill, including myself, said it would. A lot of people said it wouldn't, but it did. Cut it in half. Families got the checks every month, and they were able to pay for a little bit of, extra food or buy some school clothes for their kids, or not have to make such a stressful decision about affording rent or paying for, health care or after school stuff. I mean, they spent their money on kids, and the richest country in the world cut childhood poverty in half. Now we've seen it double in effect because we did not extend the child tax credit. My goal is to end childhood poverty in this country. I think that should be a goal for the richest country in the world. We now know how to do it, and we've got to fight to make this child tax credit, the enhanced child tax credit, permanent.
Yeah. So I agree with him. Just to give you the numbers, the tax credit was $3,600 a year for children under 5 and under, $3,000 for 6 through 17 for the year. Right. So if you figure that in for a child under 5, what is that? That's $300 a month. $300 a month per kid. And we got it to the lowest point it had ever been in this country.
Unfortunately, Duncan, I suspect we're going to see that number get worse before we get better.
Not unless we reinstate it, yeah.
Well, I just sort of thought of something else, which on the surface seems completely unrelated, but I don't think that is. How many Americans are about to go into repayment for their student loans again that haven't had to do that in the past few years? That on the surface sounds unrelated, but you cut people's child tax credit and it translates into $300 less per month. How many of those people have some amount of student loans sitting out there that are going to now be on the hook for an extra how much per month. In addition,
the child tax
expect it to make your number get worse.
Well, the child tax credit ended in 2022. That's why, but it's shot by. So they've already been feeling that pain. But
yeah,
the bigger issue is if you have 1 in 8 children suffering from poverty, what are the odds those children don't grow up to be criminals? What are the odds those children don't grow up to be against the system? What are the odds those children grow up and get decent educations and become contributing members and not burdens? I've used the example before. If I have 2 kids and one kid I basically leave in a cardboard box and just throw food in once in a while, and the other kid I give everything, tutors, teachers, I spend lots of time with all that, which of those 2 kids do you think is going to be successful? Statistically speaking, just playing the odds, it's always going to be the kid you educated and helped. Right. Kids that are desperate and poor tend to drop out of school, tend to commit crime. Why? Because they need money, because they need food. Right. This is just old shit, but that's kind of anyway, that was kind of our news segment. Sorry to bum you guys out with that last little bit, but that's, one of those things.
Gee, that was uplifting, Duncan.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yep. Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back and we'll do taxes.
Yep.
And we'll explain kind of how we can solve some of these poverty problems, I think. Cool. So we're back now. Woo. Sorry, I'm a little blurry. That should correct here in a second. Anyway, so we were talking about taxes and stuff and where we should focus our energy as a country. And, I have a little clip from Jon Stewart. This is an older clip on taxes. So we're going to start with him to entertain us and realize how much better he is as a scriptwriter than we are. Or at least his scriptwriters are than we are.
Americans can't make a buck without Uncle Sam reaching his dirty little paw down our pants. We pay federal taxes, state taxes, property taxes, tax on gas, alcohol, cigarettes, diapers, tampons, clams. There's even a tax on sound effects.
Oh, yeah.
It sounded like an ocean liner just came. I don't know. We got to be the most taxed people in the world. What do we got there? Really? 8% is the average tax burden in the United States of America? That can't be right. Point is this, it's low. Lower than you'd think. So, if we're mad, those 38% paying meatball-eating scandies must be absolutely outraged.
I love to pay my taxes.
Det är lite i hög, men det är bra också.
I pay because I think the system works.
Yeah, I like paying taxes.
From your lighthouse in an Ingmar Bergman movie? By the way, that gentleman is now available at IKEA. He's called a Skernbergen.
So that brings us to it. They're paying quadruple, more than that. And they don't complain about it. They like to pay their taxes.
You know what? I want to jump in on that from personal experience when, because I'm Scandinavian,
right. I
have never lived in Scandinavia, but I have family members there whom I have gone to visit. And I've had this discussion with them before. And, none of them jumped up and down and, had glee about their taxes per se. They were all like, oh, yeah, our taxes are fine. We get a lot of stuff, They were like, things here are really good. So it's fine.
But that's why. Is they get stuff for it. And he's going to get into that here. That's the crux, is they get stuff for it.
Yeah, but my point is also, though, that they didn't just, find the 3 okay people with it on the street. My experience from speaking to family members literally in Sweden was that it was not perceived as much of a problem.
Right. Well, and statistically, most of them don't care. They think it's fine. They have no problem. They think it's fine.
It was fine.
Yeah. So he'll get into that here in a second.
But these folks bring up an interesting point. They seem pleased to pay taxes because their system is working. Why?
We don't have to worry about getting sick. We don't have to worry about insurances.
Daycare for kids, free school.
When you go give birth, it's almost free.
Things in Finland's government-issued baby box that just make sense. All the pads for your new leaking body. Condoms so you don't pop out another one right away.
They get a fuck box? You go to Finland, you get a taxpayer-funded fuck box? Although I guess, to be fair, any box could be a fuck box if you're...
I think he just have stopped right there. I mean,
what was that?
He should have just stopped right there before any box could be a fuck box.
Yeah, well, I made it as a comedy show, so he's gotta milk it. But
You gotta push that line a little.
Yeah, but you gotta get into the real point is daycare is free. Imagine if you said that to a parent here in the United States. Free daycare. They would lose their shit. Do you know how much daycare is? I mean, daycare is more than most people's rent.
Listen, there's a person in my life that literally cannot go back to work, even though that would be her preference. She would prefer to be a working parent rather than a stay-at-home parent. But she literally could not manage to earn enough even to fund the daycare bill for her children.
Right.
She has more than one child that is of the age that would need daycare, and she said it would only make sense if I literally had one child, and even then it toes the line because that's so expensive in the city that I live in.
Oh yeah.
More than one kid, forget it. It wouldn't make sense.
Well, think about that. So that's one, huge savings right there from your taxes. Two, you talk about all their medical insurance. It's covered by the government. Do you get sick, you just go to the hospital. And there's no bill. Most of their colleges are free. You think about all the things that are burdening the average American. You think about that, like we just talked about, child poverty is spiked in this country because these kids can't get food. Not a problem in Sweden and Norway.
And let's pull the string on how that relates to the education thing. So if you could get your college education either free or so heavily subsidized that it's virtually free.
Yeah.
You could exit high school and go become a nurse without a bunch of saddling debt. And if you become a nurse, you think that your children are going to be in poverty?
No.
No. And was it maybe you have to be super smart to become a nurse, obviously, smart enough to be able to get through all of it, but would you be held back because you're like, geez, I don't know if I can afford to actually go and do that?
Right.
Let alone how hard it is to go through nursing school. No, you just have to say, do I think I could do all these classes? Yes. Am I interested in doing them? Yes. Okay, and go. Right?
Right. It's just a question of, am I willing to do the work?
Right.
And then if I do
not whether I can even actually manage to foot the bill and not end up in crippling debt because of it.
Right. Now I'm in a better position to buy a house, buy a car.
And to have children that I can actually afford to support and keep working, even if I have more than one child back to back, because I can actually put them in a safe and healthy environment, right?
Right. And I'm not in this constant fear of, I'm going to lose my job and be in crippling poverty. Right. Or I'm going to get injured and be in crippling poverty. Right. Or I'm going to have an unexpected pregnancy and I'm going to have to lose my job to stay home with the kids.
Right.
It's amazing. So, of course, I could see where you'd sit there and go, well, yeah, I don't mind paying my taxes because what I pay, I get more back. Right? It's that whole thing when they pushed the Medicare for all stuff, and everybody kept asking, well, what would that increase taxes by? And they kept trying to explain, well, it would increase taxes, sure, but what you'd be saving would be a lot more than what you'd be paying. Because right now, and that's the thing that's so hard to sell to people, which is like, right now, you're paying whatever, even if you're getting it through your work, which most people do. Only about half of us do get it through work that are working. And even then, you're paying $400 or $500 a month for a decent plan. If you have kids, especially, you could be up to close to $1,000, right? Well, if you're paying an extra $5,000 a year in tax, then you're only paying $300 or $400 a month, but you don't have to. But it covers everything. You don't have to worry about it, right? But it probably wouldn't be that high in tax because it'd be a percentage. It wouldn't be a flat fee. So, I mean, it's just simple things where, once again, our whole thing with where are your priorities at? Are the priorities, I want lower taxes, I don't want to pay taxes, or are my priorities, I would like to live in a wealthier economy? Because if I want to live in a wealthier economy, we got to pay taxes so everybody gets that equal chance. And they don't have to worry about going into poverty. And so, I mean, Judd Stewart makes a good point on all that, but I think it's interesting because a lot of Americans don't get that. And we're going to skip here a little bit because he goes right into that real quick. I think this is it.
For money are singing a different tune.
If you're diabetic, your prescriptions are free, so I don't have to pay for it anyway.
On a de belles routes, on a accès à une certaine éducation, un système de santé qui est excellent.
The children get free medical care. There is no extra charge, whether for regular checkups, for treatments, or for prescription medicine.
Wow, it's amazing what you can pay for when you haven't been allowed to have an army. Now.
But he makes the point, where are your priorities?
So, Duncan, this reminded me, I have a random question for you.
Sure.
Do you remember roughly how much you paid the last time you had to buy like a container of Tylenol or aspirin, something of that sort?
I honestly, I don't. It's been a while. But
so, I mean, probably, depending on the size of the container, probably a solid $10 at least, right?
Yeah, probably, yeah. Depending on what it was, yeah.
Well, I was in the UK recently, and I needed to pick some up. I didn't travel with any, or I ran out and I needed some, and I just popped into a pharmacy and I bought a box of Tylenol. I looked at the price and I was like, wait, what? So I bought two. Because it was 49 pence, half a pound.
Jeez.
I bought two. It was like I spent a pound on 2 boxes of it.
Yeah,
they weren't very large. There weren't like a lot of pills in it. I think it was maybe 16 pills each, or I don't know, something like that. But the price was so ridiculously reasonable, and I was like, and it made me stop and. I've always thought the price of drugs in the U.S. was pretty crazy.
Ridiculous.
But I stopped. I was like, why on God's green earth, for just like your average like headache medicine, over-the-counter headache medicine, are we spending so freaking much money?
Right.
You go to the UK and like I could buy 2 boxes of this stuff for a pound.
Right. Well, I think the problem too is people misunderstand what taxes are and what they're for, and so. Here's a theory, and some of you might disagree with this, but this is modern monetary theory. So this is Dr. Stephanie Kelton, and we sort of talked about this last time, but I thought I'd get into it a little bit here. So she's going to explain a little bit of what it is, and then we can get into some more detail.
An unconventional economic theory is gaining some traction thanks to the policy teams of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders.
I think the first thing that we need to do is break the mistaken idea that taxes pay for 100% of government expenditure.
My critics say, Bernie, that's a great idea. You're into all this free stuff. How you gonna pay for it?
So MMT starts with a simple observation, and that is that the US dollar is a simple public monopoly. In other words, the United States currency comes from the United States government. It can't come from anywhere else. So what that means is that the federal government is nothing like a household. In order for households or private businesses to be able to spend, they've got to come up with the money, right? And the federal government, it can never run out of money. It cannot face a solvency problem, bills coming due that it can't afford to pay. It never has to worry about finding the money in order to be able to spend.
So
Bringing in a new roommate to save money.
That's all I wanted to get her to really say. But it's a simple concept. And the guy who came up with it was a finance guy. And basically this is the story, is he initially had, with his kids, he would say, okay, if you do, mow the lawn or clean your room or whatever, I'll pay you 3 of my business cards. I'll give you to do that. Well, of course, his kids didn't do any of that, 'cause why do they care if he gives them 3 business cards, right? Then what he said was, I'll tell you what, you all owe me 10 business cards at the end of each month. Right? And the only way to earn business cards is to get them from me for doing chores. So I issue the cards. I issue the currency. You work for the currency, right? Well, now all of a sudden his kids want to do chores. They want to earn business cards because it buys them through the month. So if they have extra cards, they don't have to do any chores. So what has he done? He's created his own currency within his house that he controls, and he can issue as much of it as he wants. Right? Now there are issues with that in a government system like ours, where you don't want to get inflation out of control and things like that. But the goal is that the understanding is we're not paying taxes because the taxes are used to pay for stuff, because the government issues the money. It can print as much money as it wants at any point. Right? We're paying taxes because if we don't pay taxes, there's no incentive to work within the system. And the government only accepts US dollars. You can't pay your US taxes with the pound. You can't pay it with the euro. You can't pay it with the yen. You have to pay it with US money. And because we're the most powerful government, we have the most powerful economy, what is everybody else's currency compared to? The US dollar. Right? So I always do the joke about it because it was 9/11 recently happened, but it's not really a joke. It's just a fact. I mean, bin Laden said it clearly. That's where the US power lies. That's why he targeted the World Trade Center. Because our power is not our military. It's the fact that we control the value of everything. Right? And the way we do it is through taxes. Now, does it matter if you tax this amount or that amount? No, but everybody needs to be taxed something in order to keep them in the system, right? So what does taxes really do? It really comes down to what are our priorities? And what's happened in this government is, in this country, is now if you're really wealthy, right, you're in a position to buy off politicians or to get your voice heard more, and then they vote for the stuff you want. The government itself doesn't care about the money. It's the bank. It can never go bankrupt, just like a monopoly. It's in the rules. The bank can never go bankrupt. Right? But that's the whole point, is it's kind of a shell game that gets played here. Right? So what I think is interesting is we'll go to this. So this was a clip from about 4 years ago, and this was at Davos. And this is the majority part with Sam Cedar. And this is really interesting because a couple professors sort of pointed this out at Davos, and it ends up kind of backfiring on the rich people at Davos and the reporters there. But this is pretty funny.
This panel, and it's a Washington Post panel. The reporter is Heather Long. She just does like a general beat. She's an she is Chiron here as an economics correspondent for the Washington Post. Now, I just want everybody to sort of sit with that for a moment and imagine what the baseline knowledge of the United States economy and just the things like the history of the economy, basic stuff, basic, just knowledge of how the tax system works, just very basic overview. She is doing this panel. On it is this guy, is Michael Dell from Dell Computers, right? And this guy from MIT named Eric Rinjolson. He is the director of MIT's initiative on the digital economy. And so here's the exchange. She asks a question. They get a big laugh because the idea of actual, tax regime is hilarious. But listen to where this goes.
There are growing calls to address these inequalities, particularly the wage inequality, with more taxes. In particular, in the United States, there's been a call by Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez to tax people earning over $10 million at a 70% tax rate. The current top rate in the United States is 37%. Michael Dell, do you support this?
I just want to say I'm thrilled that they're asking.
Wow. Well, look, I mean, my wife and I set up a foundation about 20 years ago.
Pause it. I just love the fact that he can't even joke around. Like, they're all laughing, and he immediately goes to the talking points that he goes into defense mode.
And can we just say that Bill Gates, who's more classy and less, I hate Bill Gates, but he's less of like an obvious moron than Michael Dell, made exactly the same point.
About 20 years ago, and we would have contributed quite a bit more than a 70% tax rate on my income, on my annual income. And I feel much more comfortable with our ability as a private foundation to allocate those funds than I do giving them to the government.
Of course you do.
All right.
So no, I'm not supportive of that.
Jeez, for fuck's sake.
I don't know. I would rather I distribute my money however I want than have to pay taxes and have you give it to poor children or something. I'd rather give it to people that are going to cut my taxes. Right? Which is what he's done.
Oh my God, I can't even, right?
But that's what they always do. I give more to charity, but it's like which charities? A lot of them are charities that are going to cut your taxes. They're lobbying firms and things like that. So anyway, this is where this gets funny.
Right.
Because his whole point is, well, I give out more in charity. Well, not really, because you get to take deductions and all that crap. But this is where this starts to get funny. And everybody kind of ends up eating it.
I think it would help the growth of the U.S. economy.
Oh, that's interesting. And can you say a little bit more about why you don't think it would?
I'll name a country where that's worked ever.
Oh.
This economy.
Oh, that's interesting. And can you say a little bit more about why you don't think it would?
I'll name a country where that's worked ever.
United States.
Briefly in the 80s.
No.
All right, pause it for a second. No, pause it for a second.
Okay, so they're going to pause it and laugh about this, but we got to pause it too. So that was the MIT professor on the sideline. And he said, well, name a country where that's worked, where the effective highest tax rate was 70%. Name a country where that's ever worked. And the guy from MIT says the United States. And she says, oh, well, briefly in the 80s. Now, he's about to correct her because the top marginal tax rate in the United States was over 70% for most of the 20th century. So the top earners were paying over that. And in fact, in the 50s and I think the 60s at some point, in the 50s, it was close to 90%. So basically, when Ocasio-Cortez says, let's go back to 70%, she's not even going back to the highest marginal tax rate it used to be. But this woman, of course, Michael Dell doesn't know that because he's an idiot. But this woman is supposed to be the economic correspondent for the Washington Post, and she doesn't know that. So let's watch them. They're going to laugh about this a little bit, but this is ridiculous.
First off, she is completely stumped by his challenge. Name a country where it's worked. In addition to having no further really follow up, this is an economics correspondent for arguably the second most important newspaper in the country. I don't know where it would rank internationally, but a fairly important paper that internationally as well. An economics correspondent, maybe not the economics correspondent. And she says for a short time in the 80s. Now,
when Reagan knocked it up, he whacked it up to 80%.
The top marginal tax rate starting in 1936 through till 1982 was never below 70%. The highest was in the 90s, and that was for over 10 to 15 years. It was in the high 80s from like 36 to 50, maybe hitting 90 occasionally.
These reporters just worship the orthodoxy of the current economy.
These reporters don't have Google.
Yeah.
They don't they don't like hey, I'm going and I am the economics correspondent for the Washington Post, and I'm going to ask Michael Dell about these tax rates. Yeah. I wonder what the tax rates have been in this country that I am an economics correspondent for in the second most important.
One of the magic features of the modern economy that you're always writing like dumb tributes to in the Washington Post is Google.
You could have used a Dell computer.
Exactly.
You use a Dell computer, and then you go to Google, and then you discover how to not embarrass
There's just something fundamentally wrong with everything that this basic level of competency when you head into it's just mind blowing.
But you know what it is, guys. We're just ideas.
It's ideas. But wait a second. So fortunately, they have I guess you need to be a professor at MIT to know this.
Okay, so they're going to get back to the professor here because he explains the same thing.
To the U.S. economy.
Oh, that's interesting. And can you say a little bit more about why? Why you don't think it would?
Well, name a country where that's worked ever.
United States.
Briefly in the 80s.
No. From about the 1930s through about the 1960s, the tax rate averaged about 70%. At times it was up as high as 95%. And those were actually pretty good years for growth. So I don't have a strong opinion on that proposal. A lot of the devil is in the details. But I think there's actually a lot of economics that suggests that it's not necessarily going to hurt growth.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, you know what? I kind of hope the Washington Post was paying attention to the lack of knowledge their correspondent actually had, because that makes them look really stupid.
Oh, and especially at Davos. Now, the thing about it, though, is that it's, once again, it's what we were talking about, it's priorities, right? So when the tax rates were that high, what the concept was is, well, no, you just, if you're making with the equivalent of $5 million today, right, or $10 million, that's just your civic duty. It was a different thought process back then. You just paid it. Nobody really complained about it. It wasn't like people were rioting about the taxes back then. They just paid it, right? And the concept was, well, it was part of the general concept of the United States, which is we don't want to have a landed gentry in this country, which is why we have estate tax. We don't want to have royalty in this country. But that all changed in the 80s under Reagan, which is the trickle-down theory, which now we do. We have billionaires that can just put their finger on the system, right? That can just go walk into the White House or Congress and tell them what they want. Right? You never really had that before. Well, here is a Dutch historian, and we're going to play this last part of this video. But here's a Dutch historian the next day in Davos talking about this. And this was really amazing.
One of those comments that indicts everybody for being on stage.
Yeah. This is my first time at Davos, and I find it quite a bewildering experience, to be honest. I mean, 1,500 private jets have flown in here to hear Sir David Attenborough speak about, how we're wrecking the planet. And I hear people talk in the language of participation and justice and equality and transparency. But then, I mean, almost no one raises the real issue of tax avoidance, right? And of the rich just not paying their fair share. I mean, it feels like I'm at a firefighters conference and no one's allowed to speak about water, right? there was only one panel, actually.
Well, we've had two. You're the second of our panelists.
There was only one panel.
Let's go there.
One panel hidden away in the media center that was actually tax avoidance. I was one of the 15 participants. So something needs to change here. I mean, 10 years ago, the World Economic Forum asked the question, what must industry do to prevent a broad social backlash? The answer is very simple. Just stop talking about philanthropy and start talking about taxes. Taxes. We need, I mean, just 2 days ago, there was a billionaire in here, what's his name? He asked the question like, name me one country where a top marginal tax rate of 70% has actually worked. And, you know, I'm a historian. The United States, that's where it has actually worked. In 1950s, during Republican President Eisenhower and the war veterans, the top marginal tax rate in the US was 91% for people like Michael Dell. You know, the top estate tax for people like Michael Dell was more than 70%. I mean, this is not rocket science. I mean, we can talk a very long time about all these stupid philanthropy schemes. We can invite Bono once more, but come on, we got to be talking about taxes. That's it. Taxes. All the rest is bullshit, in my opinion.
And that was the last time he was ever seen at Davos. But he's right. We've got to start talking about taxes and where are our priorities. You know, and the understanding is that by raising taxes, it's not doing it because we're paying for stuff. We're doing it because we're trying to keep the playing field even. Because when you don't, what ends up happening is you end up having a royal class. And a lot of the pressure, and I know with Republicans and stuff for that is, look, if you're already rich, you don't want to talk about taxes. Right? But if you're poor, you should be wanting to talk about taxes. If you're middle class, you should want to be talking about raising taxes because you're the one that's going to benefit. Right? But they get all these people convinced that no, raising taxes is bad. It's like, no, it's actually good. Because you won't have to pay for all this shit anymore.
Right.
Or you could just trust that Michael Dell and Bill Gates and all those guys will start a charity foundation for you.
And you know what they choose to do with that money is definitely going to help you.
Absolutely, because that's what they care about. Well, let's wrap up. Let's do this. We'll do a Dave Ramsey video. I haven't seen this. You haven't seen this. But somebody said we might agree with him. That would be cool. That would be a first.
Oh, so somebody sent this to us.
Yeah. So this is called. Oh,
I love that. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's check it out. I'm not gonna lie, Duncan. I would actually be kind of excited to hear him say something that I'm kind of in favor of.
Yeah. We'll find out. The title of this video is called "This is Super Stupid and Crazy." So we'll see what's super stupid and crazy here.
And do we think it's super stupid and crazy?
I don't know. We don't know yet. We're going to have to find out.
Maybe. I'm so excited. Thank you, viewers, for sending us something interesting.
Here we go.
Ashley's in Nashville. Hi, Ashley. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Better than we deserve. What's up?
So I just wanted to get your all's opinion. I have a friend that does your all's program as well as I've been doing it since 2020. I'm still in baby step 2. And we've discussed it a few times.
Let me get her on closed captions because I'm having a hard time hearing her.
I'm just not sure of my decision. So in 2019, we adopted our son. And then a year later, our marriage fell apart and we split up. So fast forward to now, we've been to court 2 times over custody issues. A lot of nonsense, really. His dad's just really hard to get along with. But in those 2 times, it's cost me around $20,000 to $25,000 in court, attorney fees, and everything else. So I'm trying to just gain some traction on maybe preparing for that in the future because I feel like it's not going away and still being able to pay off my debt. I really just don't know what to do.
I'm sorry, Ashley. It's really
Yeah, that's a really hard situation. How much money do you make a year?
So I work as much overtime as I can. I try to. Last year I made around 100,000, and then this year it's probably going to be between 80 and 90.
Okay.
What do you do?
I'm a nurse.
Yeah, good for you.
Thank you.
How much debt in general do you have?
Altogether, it's probably around 90,000. It's a mixture of vehicles, my vehicle alone, and then I have some credit cards and a line of credit at the bank.
What do you owe in your car?
25.
Okay. So you have 90,000 in debt and 25 of it's car. And then how much of it's credit cards?
Around 9,000.
Okay. So the rest of it is what?
I have a line of credit, which is around 20,000 that I opened up to pay for court fees. And I'm not sure. I can't think of anything else.
Okay, that's only 45. That's only 54,000.
So I have another vehicle in my name, but I don't pay for it. So that's another 48,000, but that's not mine. It's
What in the world? What is that?
It's his truck, but he makes all the payments on that. It doesn't cost me anything, but we went in together to get it. So
Okay, so pretty straightforward, huh?
Well, in a divorce decree, one would think that would be
I don't know that they
sent
get.
over to him, and wouldn't he have to refinance it? Because wouldn't in the case of a divorce, wouldn't they say your vehicle, you have to?
She's in Tennessee. I don't know if they have common law in Tennessee, but it depends on how long they were together. If they got married, even they might have just had the kid together. She just said they split up, and they've been having custody issues, which tells me if it's just custody, that tells me it's not a divorce, and it's not a common law separation. Because the custody would just get rolled into that, right?
Well, they adopted the child. I'm not knowledgeable about this, but do adoption agencies place any stipulations on couples adopting that are non-married?
I don't know that they can, or what the rule is, and I honestly don't know on that one. My guess is if they adopted the child together as a couple, then they both have equal custody. And I'm curious as to what is the $20,000, and is that attorney fees?
She said a line of credit that was
$20K for court.
Largely taken out for varying court fees or whatever, so it might have been attorney whatever.
It had to have been attorney fees because the court wouldn't be charging her.
No, but regardless, you would lump that all into the at least in your mind, you would call that court fees, even though it's not literally court fees. It'd be the attorney part of it, but she needs the attorney.
Right. That's expensive. That's an expensive lawyer for a custody.
She's also gone, she said, I thought 2 times already, right?
Yeah. You can go several times, but you can usually get a family court lawyer or something like that for, $5,000, less than that.
I guess I'm interested in hearing what Dave is going to have to say about this. Because in the top of my mind, I'm thinking to clients that I have had, them trying to really get on top of their finances and were behind on bills and had debt and wanted to clear all of those. But when working out their budget, they said to me, I have to be honest, I am going to end up in a court again. And largely had to do with custody things where they had tumultuous situations with the other parent, right?
Right.
And they said it would be naive of me to think I'm not going to court again. So I don't think I can put all my eggs in the basket of trying to clear this debt, even though I want it really gone. If it's going to make me turn around and take on more because I'm going to get stuck with these fees again because I'm going to go to court again, I got to get ahead of that.
Yeah.
So I feel like this person prioritize that. I would hope Dave would say the same thing.
So the line of credit deal, is that a home equity line of credit, or is that a personal line of credit? Because if it's a personal line of credit, it's going to be a lot more money, or a lot higher interest rate. If it's home equity, it could be 7 to whatever, 7 to probably 15.
She hasn't said anything about a mortgage either, so
I'm guessing it was personal. So she's
probably personal.
Yeah. The deal is, I'm guessing with the car, the APR isn't that big of a deal. I would guess, my thing would be is, what can you save every month? Can you do it's a budgeting issue at this point. Can you pay off the credit cards first? Right.
You know what? He might, Dave, in predicting Dave, I do think that he will want her to prioritize the future attorney's fees because those are her babies. How is he not going to do that?
But she doesn't. But if she's taking a line of credit, she doesn't have any savings. So I'm trying to figure out.
Well, that's the point I'm about to make, is that he's probably, and she's in baby step 2, which is going to tell her not to have savings. Baby step 2 is going to tell her to keep it to $1,000 and focus on the debt. But he might also jump in there and ask her to try to pick up more shifts as a nurse, because nurses really can make quite a bit of money if they can pick up any extra shifts. Now, I don't know how possible that is with the situation with her child or not.
Well,
but I'm going to guess they can throw that out there.
Yeah, but she's already said she's maxing out as much overtime as she can get. So, honestly, there's just a lot of questions here. I don't know. We'll see what he says.
Yeah.
I need a lot more information.
Your name is is it on the deed? On the loan?
On the title of the truck?
Yeah.
But the divorce decree gave him the truck, and you're supposed to pay it, or he's supposed to pay it.
So that's not his. No, that's like my fiance that I have now. I'm sorry.
Oh, so you have you're
bought
engaged.
A truck for your fiance for $50,000.
So we went in together. I didn't necessarily buy it for him. It's something that we just done together.
All right, 3.
Well, he's gonna be really not favorable about that. And the truth of the matter is, I won't disagree with that.
Why did she co-sign the truck for the fiance?
Right.
I am, up to her. I'm not, it's her. I mean, she's taking the risk to do it, but it's up to her. I really don't have an opinion on that. If he's paying it, he's been paying it, he's been faithful about it, then I don't see an issue. But
he needed you to co-sign it?
No, he's doing good with his money.
No, he's not. He took out a $50,000 truck loan. He's not doing with his money. Why are you on the loan?
Because we're getting married, and I don't know. It was.
When are you getting married?
Hopefully within the next year.
Okay. In the whole story that you told us, that has a lot of tragedy and sadness, this thing then jumps up as super stupid and crazy.
Right.
Like a $50,000 truck while you're fighting and don't have the money to pay, and you have to take out a line of credit. And the best idea y'all got is go in debt for $50,000 on a truck while you're trying to keep a dadgum child in a custody battle ongoing with a crazy ex.
Yeah.
This truck is crazy. Nuts. Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Well, wait. So we're not going to address the problem. We're just going to chastise her for co-signing on a truck. And it sounds like she did it.
Well, I'm not gonna lie. I don't disagree that one was in the stupid column for sure.
Well, but I think from
definitely the stupid column. However, I think he's being a little extra about it. I don't think it's necessary for him to,
I don't know.
Go at her what he is about it.
Well, we don't know that it's stupid yet. That's the thing about it. Is if they did it just because they're young and they're just like, oh well, we want it to all be together, right? I can see that they just thought that way. But if the guy's paying the truck off and he's doing okay with his money, And I'm sorry, if he bought a $50,000 truck, that's his business. I mean, it's not, you know.
Yeah, it's his business, and I don't know anything about his situation, so I don't know if I have any opinion about whether 50,000 is an insane amount on a truck or not or whatever. I don't know anything to have an opinion about that.
Right.
Where I'm going to say that I at least sort of agree with him is that it's not a great decision, in my opinion, for her to attach herself to debt associated with a truck like this when I think that she needs to keep her credit and what her income is attached to available to her, knowing that she's got this situation that's going to keep requiring her to fund it.
Well, right. My issue is that as long as the guy's paying off the truck, it's not a big issue. The other thing about it is now we've got this other guy in the picture. We don't know what he's willing to contribute or can contribute to whatever her legal issue is. Right. So the problem is we don't know anything yet. It could be that this guy makes, good money and says, you know what, I'll help you pay for the attorney fees. In which case, yeah, I mean, co-signing for the truck.
If that was the case, Duncan, she wouldn't be calling in with a problem.
Well, but see, the situation is we don't know yet what the situation is. All we know is she's engaged to this guy, but we don't know what the whole. I mean, we don't know the picture. And my thing is
well, what I'm offering is that I don't believe she would be calling in if she was engaged to a person who is willing to help and could help to the tune of these future fees not being a problem.
Well,
it's obviously a problem if she's calling in.
Well, no, maybe she can help her pay stuff off. She's more worried about what, that was the question. That she's going to have to pay another $20,000 attorney fees? We haven't gotten to that. We're arguing about the truck and some debt stuff. What I want to know about, your immediate problem is the custody battle and how do you fund it, right? And now we're talking about all this irrelevant shit. That's where I'm stuck with him. Is like, you're chastising her about the truck. We haven't even addressed the fucking problem. This is you've got a splinter in your finger. I'm going to focus on that and not on your cancer. Because this thing with the legal stuff, if it's going to be this expensive, it could bleed her out.
I do agree that he's focusing on the wrong.
No, that's just my point. I don't really give a shit about the truck. It's at this point. It's not even.
However, I'm going to say I do also agree that it's not wise of her to attach herself to this extra load of debt, because if she has to take more debt on to keep her children, she needs to make sure she can get that. And if her debt to income ratio is being all like swallowed whole, that's not a good thing when you're not sure where the money's going to come from.
Well,
for all this other.
If it affects her credit rating, that's about all that it can really do at this point. If the guy's paying it, if he's not paying it, then it's an issue. But right now, she said he's paying it. He makes good money, so I honestly don't see the issue. But I agree with you. She didn't need to do it, and it was kind of pointless. But but right now, I don't even think that's the problem. The problem is.
Well, unfortunately, also she's there now. So whether I agree that it was in the stupid column, and it sounds like disagreeing with you, but she's already there now, and so it being in the stupid column or not doesn't change that there's a problem that needs to be addressed, and it thus far is not. But there's more time on the clip, so maybe it will get addressed.
We'll see. We're halfway through it.
All right, so you're getting married. When did you say?
Probably within a year.
Okay. Why are you waiting?
Honestly, because everything's just been so crazy with my ex for the past 2 years.
This is the part where you go, I'm going to get married this weekend at a court or something on Friday or whatever. That's exactly what's about to happen.
You think so? You think he's going to tell her to just get married?
I don't think so, Duncan. I 100% know so. He's going to basically tell her that they're already acting like they're a married couple and that she needs to go and get married like tomorrow or something.
But I don't
watch it. Just press play.
Okay, I don't know how that solves anything, but okay.
All right, you have to buy me dinner if I'm right.
Oh, there you go.
Anxiety and depression. My son has a lot of issues. He was born with.
None of that's changing in a year.
I'm sorry.
None of that is changing in a year.
I know. Yeah. We just not. I don't know. Just anxiety and depression on my side, and my main focus being my son. Right. That's just not been at the top of the list, I guess.
Okay. You called and asked us for help, and we love you, and we want you to win, and we're sad that you're having to fight to keep your baby. Okay. Now, then I'm going to tell you some hard stuff. Are you okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. Sell the stupid truck. Get married now.
Well, good
or
call.
Don't. But don't wait around on some mythical island to come sailing up, some mythical ship to come sailing up to your island when everything's going to be right.
Oh, man. Okay.
All right, so we didn't make it to the hibachi place last time it was in town.
Okay. Okay.
So there you go.
Of course, you have to pick one of the most expensive restaurants. Okay.
Clearly, I've got great taste.
So, no. I mean, I honestly, you know what I foresee. She goes to him, honey, we need to sell your truck, and you need to get some piece of shit. And you need to marry me this weekend. Yeah, that's going to be a great freaking relationship. I'm sure just the fact that he's already taken on her debt and the fact that she has an adopted kid with emotional problems or whatever other issues, we didn't get into it, right? That's already a big step. Now she's going to say, you can't have this truck and we got to get married. Yeah, that's going to...
Apparently, I want to hear how this whole thing plays out.
That's going to...
I love that they sent us this one.
This is so stupid. It is. You're right, Dave. This is just super stupid and crazy. You're yelling at her about shit that's, fucking irrelevant to the question. Get married.
I don't think it's irrelevant, but I think he's getting stuck on the wrong thing.
Well, it's irrelevant to the question of she's trying to get rid of her debt. All right? The one debt she's not paying is the one he's focused on. Her fiance's paying it. So my attitude is, as long as the fiance's paying it, who gives a shit? It makes...
Well, and what he's not addressing, and granted, there's like 3 more minutes of this clip.
Right.
What he's not addressing is how she can try to get herself ahead of this ongoing legal battle enough for it not to create more debt. Right now, me, as a personal finance coach, my primary concern is, where do we find a place in your budget where you're setting money aside because you're going to court again? Where do we find that place? How do we start dealing with that? Because I don't want you to go from 90 grand in debt to 120 grand in debt to 150 grand in debt. Like, I do not want that to snowball in the wrong direction.
Right.
So where do we find that money?
Right.
And maybe that's what Dave's thinking, but that's not what I feel like I'm hearing him thinking.
That's not what he's saying.
I feel like I'm hearing him thinking, let's get rid of the debt that's already here. I'm a little worried about creating more debt.
Well, here's
and if we avoid it.
But here's the one that's funny to me. What is the debt that he wants her to get rid of? Her fiance's truck. Right? The debt she's not paying on. So the fiance's paying it.
Okay. I hate that I'm about to give this one to you a little bit, because I think that truck is in the stupid column for her. I don't know if it's in the stupid column for him, but for her,
sure,
it's kind of dumb. But this is where I'm going to give this one to you, in that, yeah, they're asking her to focus on getting rid of his truck, but based on the Ramsey values, which are very ultra conservative values, Ramsey would never, ever, ever in a million years tell her that his income needed to be solving her problem, because he would not be about them combining finances at all. So getting rid of his truck would get rid of something that's legally tied to her, but does not create more income from her because it's the debt she's not paying.
Right.
So he's kind of talking himself into a circle that, based on his values, doesn't really help her based on his values.
Right. So
now, those aren't my values, I don't care about that. So I'd say if that truck was gone and they had something cheaper, some of his income could be helping set aside for this legal cost they know they're going to get. But
Sure.
Ramsey would literally never say that. Therefore, this advice, it just got a little bit sillier.
Well, and it's stupid. And this is just from the mathematical perspective, right? From the financial advisor perspective. Okay, I'm looking at the columns of your expenses on your budget sheet that I know of, right? So you technically are co-signed on this truck, but he's paying it every month. And he's current, right? So basically, he's helping your credit score as long as he's paying it every month and he's current, right? And it doesn't cost you anything. That's what's happening at present. Now, if he defaults on the loan or something like that happens, yeah. But currently, it's not harming her in any way. So to say...
Unless, of course, it's bringing up her debt-to-income ratio.
Yeah.
She really doesn't want that part messed up.
Yeah, but I don't think that's a big issue right now, to the point, not to the tune that we're talking about. It's really going to affect her negatively. Now, the other thing about that is where we're at is, okay, she's got a $20,000 line of credit, which she's paying probably 10 or 15% on, at least. I don't know what she got it for or whatnot. She's got 25 on the car. I'm not worried. She just keeps making her car payment. And then she's got 9,000 in credit cards. So the 9,000 in credit cards are probably the highest right now. They're probably 26 or 27%. She should probably just get rid of those. And plus it's only $9,000. Even if you do his, what is it? The snowball avalanche ski resort method. I don't know what it is, but it's pay the smaller amount first, pay off the credit cards if we can get rid of that. But I'm also with you. While we're doing that, we need to be saving money, because you could be in a position where, yeah, you have to go back to court. Right? Because these custody battles don't just end. They go on for years.
Right? Which is why the focus really needs to be going into where are we finding the money in this budget to be preparing for the next battle, because it doesn't appear to be very close to being ended, you know?
Right. And it doesn't hurt to, just on the other side, it doesn't hurt to tell her, hey, go to the family court at the local county, right, where you're at, and tell them what the issue is and see if they have somebody who can point you in the right direction. Because you might be able to find a cheaper attorney. Because a lot of this stuff is pro forma. It's not like your attorney's going to make some grand argument like he's Perry Mason and solve this case and you're going to get full custody. The judge is just going to pretty much go down through the line. I mean, there's pretty strict rules about how custody works. You're going to get what you're going to get.
Right.
And every state's a little different, but you should go find like a family lawyer or even go to the local college that has a law school and ask them. Because I know the law schools will do seminars on that.
Duncan, I'm dying over here. Let's go back to this video. I want to see if he gets to any of this. Like if he loops back to it.
He does, because the only thing he's told her is get married, which is now going to cost her some money.
Well, I know the only things he's told her. I want to see if he gets to any of this, though.
Well, no, but my point is the only two things he's told her is get rid of the truck that doesn't affect you right now, and get married, which is going to cost you more money. So now he says,
I guess if she gets married, then he can say use some of this guy's income to set money aside.
Yeah, but
that way.
But at this point, he hasn't helped her at all. She's not saving any money or making any money. She's spending more money now.
Because the things you've been facing, part of your anxiety and part of the things you've been facing with mental health stuff is not just your ex. It's this pile of stuff on you and all of these untied knots that need to be tied. Okay?
Right.
You don't have closure on anything. God. All these open-ended things, or there's open-ended this, open-ended that, open-ended this. There's no closure anywhere, and that creates angst. It creates anxiety. So, you've got to get some predictable order, not chaos. The more areas of your life you can get non-chaos in, the faster your anxiety is going to drop. I'm not a mental health professional. Dr. John Deloney is. I've just heard him say that, so I said it, okay? But that's the truth, okay? Mm-hmm. So, and these, and the debt and the pile of debt you guys have, and now you guys with this $50,000 truck.
What was that?
She doesn't have a thought in her head.
No.
She only has his thoughts, and his thoughts now are John Deloney's thoughts. So she's got her thoughts are like twice removed.
Yeah. Yeah. Look at you can see it in her face. You know what's going through her head right now? Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Hey, that's all she's thinking right now.
Hey. Hey.
She's like, should I start a wave? I should start a wave. Should I start a wave?
I kind of feel bad about how much I dislike her because in my head, I unfortunately am not really that nice to her, and I don't want to be mean to her, but I just like I don't feel like she adds anything except like parakeeting like his opinion.
Well, then his whole little spiel there didn't go anywhere, and it's basically so getting rid of anxiety will cause you to be less anxious. Yeah, no fucking shit.
How much more of this clip is there?
There's like a minute or two. We'll just skip through here real quick. And we'll just wrap this up because this I don't think we're gonna agree with him.
Of where your anxiety is coming from, because you feel trapped, and now you're worried about the next time the crazy ex comes at you. Well, how are we going to cover that? Meantime, I got a $48,000 truck note. Okay.
And I know he takes care of it, Ashley. But the truth is, though, if he doesn't, it's on you then.
And so you're carrying this around your neck. You feel it between your shoulder blades. You feel the weight of it, and that's part.
Well, she didn't say that though. She never said that she was stressed about the truck. She never said anything. She completely forgotten about the truck in her list of shit.
Yeah, she wasn't stressed about that at all.
He's just focused on this because that's all he's got is you need to sell this. You're stupid. That's his whole spiel. You're an idiot. I'm smart. But he hasn't even addressed the issue. I mean, because and she kind of sort of hits on it there. It's like the wheels are turning, but the mouse isn't there kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
And where she's like, well, I know he's paying for it, but what if he doesn't? Yeah, but what if he does? What if he continues to do what he's been doing? I mean...
Well, quite frankly, I feel like this phone call turned into a call about something other than what she was trying to call about.
Which isn't unusual for them.
But you know what, Duncan, I feel like we have to... We're kind of done with this clip, right?
Yeah, we're done. I'm not doing any more of this.
So, I think this needs to go into the column because the viewer who sent this to us was like, you guys might agree here. And I'm going to say it wasn't a total disagree because there are parts of it that I agreed with. But where I'll disagree is I don't feel like he did a good job of addressing what she actually really was trying to call to address. He kind of went somewhere else on her.
Oh,
and while I don't totally disagree about that being in the stupid column, because I actually kind of do agree with that there, but he failed to go in and address what I would be dealing with my clients, with any of my coaching clients. I'd be like, okay, we literally have to open up a category in your budget. We have to find a place where some money is being allotted to this because we know it's coming. It's sort of like being like, gee, I know I'm going to have this huge tax bill.
Mm-hmm.
And it's from my business where nothing is being withheld from it. So instead of figuring out how I'm going to hold some money aside so I can pay my huge tax bill,
right,
I'm going to turn my focus over to the fact that I have a student loan payment due.
Right. It's just one.
I mean, that might be another issue, but that's not the issue you were calling to talk about, right?
Well, no. And furthermore, it's not in your scenario. The only difference is in your scenario, those are both issues. Yeah, you have a student loan payment and you've got a tax bill, right? But the issue you're focused on is the bigger one, the tax bill, right? In this scenario, it's your issue is how do I continue to pay for these legal fees, right? Going forward, what should I do? Well, your fiance has a truck that you co-signed on, which, probably shouldn't have, but oh well. But he's paying it every month. So it doesn't directly affect you right now in any way, shape, or form. And you've got all this other shit on your plate right now, like your adopted child, the custody battle, the emotional stuff with him, your credit card debt, your line of credit, the legal fees coming up. But let's focus on your fiance's truck that isn't on your plate right now.
Right.
let's focus on the one thing that's not causing you anxiety and tell you this is what's causing you anxiety is your fiance's truck. Not your fucking kid. Not the legal battle. Not the custody issue. Not your accruing debt to pay for legal fees. No. That's not stressing you out. The fact that your fiance has a nice truck that he pays for, that's what's stressing you out. It's stupid. It's just, I'm like, that's an F paper right there, man. I'm like, you didn't even address the assignment, dude.
That is true. That's true. That is my beef with him. He did not address the assignment at all. Again, I don't disagree on the fact that this truck thing was not a great move on her part, but I'm still going to wag my finger at you, Dave, because you didn't actually dig into the problem she really needed to discuss.
Right.
This woman left this call not having a plan for how she's going to address the next legal battle.
Right. Well, and if she does,
all she can do is, if she listens to you, she's going to go back and hit her fiance with, we probably need to get married on Tuesday and you have to sell your truck.
And then she could be facing a breakup. That won't cause any fucking anxiety. On top of that fact that even if the fiance goes with it and they get rid of the truck and all that, well, it doesn't really change anything except for now they have to pay for a wedding.
Oh, well, Dave won't say pay for a wedding. Let's say they can't afford a wedding. Dave will say go to the
courthouse. That's that's still $150. Anyway, well, you did call it. I didn't catch the marriage thing, but you did call it. So anyway, that's our show for today. Good work, Lacey. Where can everybody find you?
All right, as always, you can find me at mysensewithsense.com. You can find out information about courses, articles I've written, coaching program information. If you want any further information about any of that, feel free to email us or send us another clip. This one was super fun.
Yeah.
You are a little right that I agreed, at least in part, not fully, because it's probably not that likely to happen, but this one was super interesting to me because there were parts I agreed and disagreed all rolled into one. So viewers, you got any more of these, drop them in an email. Duncan,
absolutely. You can email us at gossipfinancead@outlook.com. Also, if you disagree with us on something, come on the show and tell us why, and we'd be happy to have you. Otherwise, thanks everybody for showing up, and we will catch you next time. Thanks, Lacey. Cool.